Welcome to the Explainer. We're going to jump right into a question that, really gets to the core of things. Can we be good without God? Seriously, what happens to our moral compass when you take a divine rule maker out of the equation? Let's dig in. This right here is the heart of the claim, and it's a really powerful one. You've heard this before, right? It gets repeated so often it almost feels like common sense. Without a divine rulebook, morality just crumbles. Society itself is at risk. But is that actually true? Let's take a look at the evidence together. All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll really unpack that enduring claim. Then, we're going to look at a totally different way to think about morality, as a kind of social technology. We'll also dive into some key moments in history where moral progress actually had to fight against religious doctrine. After that, we'll see what accountability looks like on purely human terms, and finally, we'll wrap up with the idea that maybe morality truly belongs to us. Okay, first up, the enduring claim. Let's get into why this idea that you need God for morality feels so obvious to so many people. The logic is pretty simple, right? If there's no ultimate supernatural boss to tell us what to do, what's stopping us from just doing whatever we want? Why be kind? Why be fair? The whole argument is that without that cosmic lawgiver, right and wrong are just opinions, with no real authority behind them. So here's the million-dollar question. Does that idea actually hold up when we look at the real world? Because, when we do look, we see cooperation and moral codes in societies that existed long before formal theology was even a thing. And we see it today, all around us, in millions of people who live good, ethical lives without any belief in a God. That kind of suggests the source of morality might be a little closer to home. And that leads us to a pretty radical alternative. What if morality isn't a set of commands from on high? What if we think of it as a kind of social technology? This one shift in perspective really changes the whole conversation. Yeah, social technology. It basically means seeing morality as a tool that we humans developed. From this angle, morality isn't about obedience to a deity. It's a practical system we built to solve a really fundamental problem. How do we all live together in groups without everything just falling apart into chaos? And this is exactly what that technology is designed to fix. Violence, lying, exploitation. These are the classic, predictable problems that pop up whenever you get a bunch of humans together. Moral systems, whether they're religious or not, survive and spread because they offer working solutions to these issues. Religion often does a great job of codifying these rules, but that doesn't mean it invented them from scratch. So this flips the script. It shifts the source of morality from some external command to an internal capacity. We actually have psychological research showing that core moral feelings, like a basic sense of fairness or empathy, show up in little kids way before they get any formal religious teaching. It seems like these capacities are just part of our toolkit as social animals that have to cooperate to survive. Now we're getting to what might be the most powerful piece of the puzzle. History itself gives us a huge counter-argument to the idea that religion is the only source of what's right. Just think about that for a second. This isn't about saying religion is bad. Not at all. It's about noticing that some of the moral achievements we are most proud of as a species didn't just happen without religion's help. They happened because people had to actively challenge the religious authorities of their time. This slide really gets to the heart of it. For centuries, you had powerful people using religious texts to justify things like slavery or the idea that women were inferior. And the people who fought against that, the abolitionists, the suffragettes, they often had to argue against the dominant religious interpretations of their day. They appealed to a different kind of authority, our shared humanity, our ability to feel empathy, and the undeniable fact that people were suffering. Their moral arguments came from a human foundation. And this quote from the source material just nails it. Moral systems that are based on ancient, unchangeable texts can sometimes struggle to adapt. Progress often needs a different engine, one that's powered by our changing, growing understanding of what causes harm and what fairness really looks like. So that brings us to our next point, accountability. If morality isn't just handed down to us, what does responsibility look like? Who exactly do we answer to? Now, this is a really important idea. If you can't appeal to a higher power, if you can't just say, well, God commanded it, then the responsibility for your actions stays right here on Earth, with you. You have to answer to the other people you share this planet with. And far from being a weakness, that creates a much more immediate and personal form of accountability. Which, of course, brings us right back to that big fear we started with, the myth of moral collapse. Does taking God out of the picture really mean society will just descend into a chaotic, selfish free-for-all? Well, when we actually look at the data, we just don't see that collapse. In fact, we often see the opposite. Many of the world's most secular societies tend to do better on key measures of a healthy society, like gender equality, social trust, and having lower rates of violence. Now, the source is really clear on this. Correlation is not causation. But this pattern seriously challenges the idea that belief in a God is a necessary ingredient for a decent moral society. And all of that brings us to our final section. After walking through all this, where do we end up? Well, with this idea: morality belongs to us. So let's quickly retrace our steps. We started by reframing morality as a human tool. Then we saw historical evidence of moral progress actually challenging religious doctrine. From there, we explored how accountability becomes direct and human to human. And it all points to this one powerful conclusion: morality can be built on a foundation of human capacities like empathy and care. And this, for me, is the most powerful takeaway of all. The choice we have isn't between the absolute certainty of divine commands and complete chaos. The real choice is between a moral system that's final and fixed and one that gives us the ongoing responsibility for figuring things out and making things better ourselves. So, if morality is a human project, if it can stand on its own 2 feet without God's, that leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If there's no pre-written divine plan, what do we anchor our lives to? Where do we find our meaning? That's a thought I'll leave with you.